Okay.
All right, Chairman.
Okay, we'll start the Olivet's Planning and Community Design Commission meeting for June 2nd, 2022 to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Rob Jerkel, present. Carol Wagner, present. Jody Rich, present. Richard Brophy,
Present.
Brian Lewis, absent. Daniel Rosenberg,
Present.
and Tim Spiegelglass. I believe he's absent unless he's on Zoom.
No.
Carlos, he's absent today. Okay, let it also be known that our city council liaison, council member Missy Waldman is in attendance, as well as staff liaisons, Carlos Trejo, the director of Olivet's Planning Community Development Department, and Bridget Waters, administrative assistant. Carlos, did I miss anybody
No, sir.
online? Okay. So, hold on for a second. Okay, thank you guys for attending, and sorry that there was a cancellation of last month or last meeting. But with all the terrible storms that we had, I think it was prudent for us to do so people could attend what's kind of most important, you know, if there was an immediate danger or concern. So thank you for being in attendance. We got a full crowd here, so we appreciate that. And we just want to kind of go through our procedures. We will have time for public comments, and that will be at the beginning or after we go through these procedures. Those are reserved for items that are not on the agenda item. So if you have a comment that's related to a specific agenda item, we do ask you wait until that agenda item, you know, comes before the board. When these agenda items come before the board, there'll be a staff report that will go through kind of their findings or their discussions of everything. There'll be discussions then with members of our commission, and then be some questions and answers amongst staff. And then we'll likely bring on the petitioner to ask them some specific questions about it. At that point in time afterwards, we'll ask for public comments related to each one of those specific agenda items. We do ask that when you come, you know, when you do have a comment to come before the podium up here, and we do ask you to be sworn or not sworn in, that's for a different commission, sorry. We ask you just to state your name and address for the record. We might have to gently remind you, but we just need it all for the record. Okay. We do also ask that any of the when we have public comments at the very beginning, we do want to limit these to no more than 3 minutes, you know, per person, if you don't mind, because we have a lot of people that might want to speak, and we also want to be respectful for everybody's time. We do ask you to be cognizant of trying not to be repetitive. You know, but if you do agree with the person that just said it, just say, I concur with everything that person said. Okay. But this way we can kind of move through the process as well as we can. Okay. All right. Carlos, did I miss anything?
No, sir.
Okay.
We're set.
That being said, we will ask for any public comments that are for items not related to the agenda item. See none in the audience. Carlos, do you have anything online?
Chairman, I have 2 hands online in regards to comments for non-agenda items. Ms. Brodsky, I'm going to promote you over to panelist. And again, this is for public comments regarding items not on the agenda.
Carlos, so you know, we're not seeing anything. We're just seeing the view of ourselves. We got new displays, everybody. So, but sometimes with new technology, it takes a little bit of time to get used to everything. So.
They were set earlier.
There we go. Perfect. No worries.
All right. Ms. Brodsky, I'm going to try again to promote you to panelist. You were on twice.
Sure, there's nobody out in the audience that wants to speak?
So I do have one person online, Maureen Brodsky. I believe she lives in the Arrowhead subdivision and may be wanting to talk about the tax amendment. But I keep trying to promote her to panelist and it's not working.
Okay,
And she's re-logged on again. And let me see if that works.
okay.
She was on twice.
You know what we can always do if we're having problems? I mean, we still need to get this fixed in case we have public comments on the agenda items, but we can always come back to public comments at the very end.
Mhm. Here we go.
All right. Maureen, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're intending to do that and your video is not on. So if you could unmute yourself and put the video on, that would be appreciated. Maureen, can you hear us?
Okay, it seems like you have your speaker is on or your audio is on, Ms. Brodsky.
Oh, great.
Right, Ms. Brodsky?
We should be.
Right, I am gonna, there's another individual I know that is on for an agenda item and I'm just gonna test it.
Yeah, perfect.
Mr. Stelzer, if you don't mind, if I promote you to panelist, I just want to see if the system's working correctly. I see you're on. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Unmute. Can you hear me? And
I
I'm
can.
starting video.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stelzer.
Yeah, just test complete.
Appreciate it, sir.
Good. All right. Well, why don't we do this? Since we know that the system works and that's not an issue, why don't we come back to Maureen at the end? And maybe, you know, she might, if you think it's related to the text amendment. then
Yeah,
we
we'll
can
double
address
check
that
again.
At that time. But this way we can kind of keep moving along a little bit.
All right.
Okay. So we'll move on to consent business. Carlos, I'll let you take the lead on this.
Chairman, 3 items were placed on consent business. These items were also on the May agenda, and we have received revisions prior, after the cancellation. So before you is 96 Ashmont Drive. That was previously viewed by the commission back in April. There was concerns about the rear yard, the backyard setback, which was actually a side yard. This house had a 3-car garage, and given the corner lot and some of the narrowness on the depth, it really encroached into the backyard and side yard area of their lot and the neighbor. And since it required site plan review, you have to be cognizant of that impact. The petitioner has reduced the 3-car garage to a 2-car garage, and that increased the rear yard setback. The information was shared with the neighbor immediately to the south, and that was Mr. Brodsky, excuse me, Mr. Stelzer that is on. He also provided an email that I've placed on your reports, and he found the setback much more comfortable and expressed appreciation on the commission taking that into account. The second item is 1121 Collingwood Drive. That one has revised plans to meet all of the staff requests from the staff report. That's including the front elevation, which you see here. And you also have a letter of support from the subdivision association that's been provided to your packet. The third one is the property address. It's 15 Stacy Drive. This item, there is I have to bring to the commission's attention the garage projection because it is 18 feet as opposed to the 15 feet that is recommended in the guidelines. Remember, the guidelines are just a recommendation in there. But when you take a look at the overall design characteristics of the lot and the structure, it doesn't appear out of character, out of place. And they've done a really nice a design here and breaking up the elevation, putting a canopy over the garage doors and such. So from a staff perspective, we would urge the commission to consider the footprint that's submitted. And then we've been working with the adjacent neighbor to the north and discussing with the petitioners some grading issues and stormwater concerns between the two sides. It's really flat back there. However, there's quite a bit of drop between the backyard to the street curb, and we think that we can, that they can take a look at and design some type of swell system to kind of have some of that water movement to the street and help out the flatness in the backyard. Now, we've done that on a couple of occasions, and I just want to stress, I mean, this in no way would resolve the bigger global issue. They are downhill and there will be continued water going downhill, but I think we can alleviate a lot of the stagnation that occurs in the back on there that really happens from sites other than these two properties in there. So we have that in the staff conditions, and the developer has consented to pursue and work with staff to try to resolve those issues. So those are the three items brought before you for consent. The commission can decide whether it wants to take one uniform motion on all three items, or if they want to break or extract one of these items for additional discussion.
Does anybody have any questions for Carlos?
I have one question. Carlos, my recollection, this is related to the 9600 Ashmont Drive
Yes.
petition. My recollection is that we had a discussion about breaking up the brick veneer on the left side elevation by adding windows. Do you recall that discussion?
Not offhand, and that might let me get to the full elevations here.
While you're pulling that up, I'll just express my concern. I recall having a conversation and discussing with the petitioner the prospect of perhaps making some rearrangements of the kitchen to break up that brick veneer. The concern I have is that we have a left side elevation with just a massive wall of brick that's going to be facing the street. No windows, no articulations, no details of any kind, just a massive wall. And I was hoping that the petitioner would take some steps to try to address that concern. It doesn't appear that's happened.
Here's your like, garage area.
I think the garage is the lower part, and then the kitchen is on the top part of that left figure.
That elevation that you had, I think, showed it pretty well. Right there. I don't specifically remember that, but I maybe this was discussed when I was not here. You do remember? Was I here? That's in my memory. Yeah, okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we split this one out? We'll put this under old business, and then maybe we can approve the other two and keep moving.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a problem with keeping these other two as a consent item? Okay, good, good. So do I hear a motion? On the screen, there's a recommended motion. It might need to be amended to eliminate the 9600 dash.
Correct.
I'll make the motion.
That'd be great.
I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 1121 Collingwood Drive and at 15 Stacy Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated June 2nd, 2022, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion,
Second, Mr. Chairman.
motion's been made and seconded. Carlos, will you please call the roll,
Yes, sir.
roll vote, roll call vote.
Commissioner Rosenberg?
Approved.
Should always stop the share here 1 second. All right. Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Commissioner Durgell,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Okay, so we'll move on to old business. And we'll go ahead and I think we'll make that the very first item. Is that okay with everybody, or do you want to make it the last? Carlos, your call.
It can be brought up for discussion.
Let's make it the first,
All right.
while we're talking about it. Okay, do you, I think maybe we can bring on the petitioner. Would that be good?
Great.
Don't believe I have a representative here with petitioner. Nobody online identified. So if we can defer,
We'll defer that for now.
Okay.
Maybe we'll see if we can, if sometime, if by
give us
chance.
some time.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's move on then. Okay, we'll go to item 8 on the current agenda, which is 9320 and 9322 Olive Boulevard. Carlos?
Chairman, another old business item was a proposed addition at 9320, 9322 Olive Boulevard. That is the art gallery. They're in the 9300 block of Olive. They've acquired the adjacent building to the west and proposed to demo the building and expand the current art gallery. This was at the previous commission meeting. There was some concerns that were expressed regarding the elevation articulation along Olive Boulevard. Everything else seemed to have been addressed and cognizant, but there was still some concerns regarding that front elevation. So they did revise and provide us some better renderings of the proposed addition. Had those attached to your packet. We have the representatives with the petitioner here in attendance. And be glad to answer any specific questions on that. If not, the petitioner's representatives are here to address that front elevation.
Okay, good. Anybody on the commission have any specific comments for Carlos? If not, otherwise, I think let's bring on the petitioner.
Mr. Yosef?
Hello, I'm Joseph Howley, civil engineer with CEDC, here representing Lococo Fine Arts. I also have an attendance member of the architectural staff. So as you know, this was an item that was tabled from one meeting ago. It was also put off for the weather event. But we're back and we've gone back to the drawing board a little bit on some of the geometrics and also here to explain and answer any questions you may have on this.
Good, good. Can you maybe walk us through what's changed since the last?
Sure. So we had one fairly significant comment on the entrance. And we have altered the geometrics of that entrance to further restrict the possibility of a car turning in and to make it an official one-way out. It's now to skew. And we have the site plan actually available. Sure. Carlos, I believe it looks a little different from the actual flat plan view. You can see it's actually at a pronounced 45-degree angle. Really would not allow a car to turn it at all in that configuration. I don't know if there's a slide in there that has, I have a few little printouts here. Before we were proposing to allow westbound traffic to come into that drive. We're no longer even considering that. Officially a one-way out at a 45-degree angle. So the outbound traffic is pretty easy. And you can see that they're both colored the same, but you can see the inbound.
Yeah.
The inbound traffic can pull in a quarter of the way out of the road. It should be pretty obvious when they slow down and think it's an entrance, and it will look like a curb cut, but it should be pretty obvious when they slow down that it's not feasible to make a turn. That's a 135-degree turn then. We've talked about this with MoDOT. They're acceptable to this. They do not seem to require any signage. They're not even sure if that would help or not. So from their standpoint, they're pretty much comfortable with what we propose here, without requiring any signs. Whether signs would add any additional safety or not, that's unknown really. So that is probably the biggest layout issue, geometric wise, just kind of to solve that concern. We used to have a perpendicular driveway, look like a regular driveway. Anybody could pull in and not be able to make that turn. We did run that analysis, and it was pretty obvious that you could not make that turn in.
Okay.
So we admitted defeat on that, and went back and tried to make it so there's no way you can turn it.
Right.
So that's our approach to that. That was one issue that was brought up.
Okay.
Any questions on that particularly?
No, I think that's good. Anybody comments on that? Okay, I understand there was another issue.
Well, there was an issue, and I believe it was brought up by Daniel, that noticed on the Alta survey, there was the building, which was not on our property, that's on the adjacent property to the west. Actually, a portion of that building was located in the access easement. So we did go back to the surveyor. We just said, check things out. What's going on here?
Yeah.
They stand by their depiction of where that easement is. But the easement dates from 1955. The easement predates the building. And I doubt at the time they built that building that either they didn't know there was an easement there, or it was depicted in a different way by another surveyor. It's a matter of a couple feet, which seems like that'd be a pretty big bust. But I look back at some of the original easement language. It goes back to a parent tract that was 5 acres in size. It was broken up many times, put back together. It's like Frankenstein now. So it could have been that, they didn't really have it depicted correctly at the time they built the building. That's total speculation. We haven't seen a plan of the building from when it was built that shows that easement on it. So and they said it's really not, the correction for it would be if it was needed. It seems to be functioning fine. And it may come up if one of the owners or that owner sells. It could be something that would come in the title, and then they would have to deal with that time. Mostly would dealt with a vacation of the easement and reestablishment of the easement, or vacation of that portion in the building. So there is a correction to it, but doesn't seem to be anything critical to anything going on our lot at this time.
Carlos, do you think it's going to impact anything?
Nothing that would impact the improvements on the proposed property.
Okay, just make it.
And they're pre-existing, and I think it's a good point. I'm not sure, that's the importance of going through the proper vacation process and all that. And you'll note that within the civil plans that have been submitted, there is that boundary adjustment, and I think our code does a good job making sure that all the information that's necessary is properly depicted to avoid situations like this.
Right, well, and that doesn't even show up, that easement doesn't even show up on the consolidated
Correct,
plat,
because it
so
will
it's
be
not
on somebody-
something that we
yeah.
could correct via plat, it being on the other property again, so.
Correct, and it's not anything that can be relocated because it's all on somebody else's property.
Okay.
And so,
Good. So I don't think that's an issue. Yeah. Is there anything else that there was a concern? I thought there was something I heard about a front elevation.
Yeah, my concern was the kind of monolithic appearance of the building, both in its height relative to the existing structure and the lack of any real detail. It's kind of a giant slab wall.
Sure. For that, I would like to defer to the architectural team who are in
Sure.
attendance tonight and have them come up maybe.
Good evening. My name is Jay Shessel. I represent Robert Lococo and Lococo Fine Arts with Architecture's SP. We're located at 8725 Big Bend Boulevard. Happy to answer questions or walk through the elevation. It's meticulously designed per the owner, per Robert's direction, who's obviously the owner of the art gallery and had very specific desires of what it's to look like. And was involved in every step of the design of this. So I could address the concern that you said is just like a slab wall. The wall is a very specific black brick. It is a face brick. It will be in a stack bond. It will have soldier courses running through at the base of the building and at the coping of the building. You've got a link between the existing gallery to the new gallery that is glass. And then we've got step backs in the front where the entry is recessed. So there's actually more going on than a straight on elevation shows based on all the insets, the recesses. Like this elevation, you can't see the recess at all just because it's a straight vertical line. We do have the vertical slot window that's over on the right side. And again, being an art gallery, the owner was very specific, the minimalist of windows as possible. He does not want light or any, basically sunlight into the museum / art gallery, because he looks at it as both. It's sort of, he's putting in the art stuff sort of in a museum setting inside. This would be the west elevation is a larger window. That's in the office area. So that's not in the gallery portion of the building. If we were to look at the plans that go back into his personal office and some back house areas for the gallery itself.
So no changes have been made, is that
No
right?
changes to the elevation. That is correct.
I mean, my concern stands. I appreciate the owner's interests
Right.
in addressing the internal needs of the structure, but all of us have to drive by it every day.
Absolutely.
To the outside of the structure. So I was really hoping to see some attempt at addressing that issue. I realize that maybe you're confined by the proponent
we're-
of this design.
So I kind of like it. I'm just the voice of opinion. I understand if to me, there's a difference between a flat background of a house like the house we just saw and this. I mean, this is a modern design. It's being done very intentionally. Is to project a certain look as well as care for the archival contents inside. I mean, it's done very purposefully, and I kind of like the look myself. It's not that I'm overly excited about slabs, but I think in this case it's an exception.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think it's a giant monolithic block sitting there on Olive. And I mean, if this were behind the other building and it were a storage facility or something like that, that's different. But this is facing Olive. It's going to be bigger than what's around it. It's just going to be this giant, 2001 Space Odyssey block.
I don't think it looks like a 2000 Odyssey block. I personally actually concur, that I think it looks fine. I think it looks good. And I do agree with Carol that there's a difference between what we last saw versus this. So that's my 2 cents. Daniel, I'm not sure how you feel.
So first of all, thank you for providing the renderings. I think that's really good help. And I love it. I think it's great. I'm excited. So
I'm the odd man out.
Sorry. We actually, as the design team, really like it too. I mean, we've taken inspiration from the Contemporary Art Museum and from others, types of facilities is where this came from. And fits the use of the owner's requirements. So that's, we were thrilled with it also. So I don't know, I agree with some of you, yes.
But you're going to be the deciding factor.
I like it too.
I'll take
I
my
mean, I think
licks.
I
I'll take my licks.
Well, thank you,
I
sir.
think the picturing makes it look awful dark, and I think with all the individual brick,
Very
it'll look
difficult
different.
to
We've
render.
seen stuff where
Yes.
it looks one way, and then you see it's like, oh, this
I
is totally different.
think you'll be super pleased with all the Soldier Course Rolox, the brick that's on it, the specific brick that's going in, and the detail will be very intricate, which we just can't pick up in the rendering. The rendering looks like a big, black building, and there will be very much detail in it when it's done. So I think it would be very pleasing. So
Well, let's do this. I think we've gone over all the other issues. Carlos, are there any public comments related to this, or is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this? I guess we'll defer to see who's online if there's any specific comment.
If anybody would like to speak regarding this agenda item online, if you can just show your hand. It's located in the center portion of the lower part of the Zoom window. Chairman, I see none.
Okay, that being said, if there's no further discussion, do I hear a motion? No. It's on the screen if you'd like.
Ah.
Use that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to motion to approve a consolidation of properties addressed as 9320 Olive Boulevard and 9322 Olive Boulevard to a preliminary subdivision plat and to forward a recommendation to the city council to approve a final subdivision plat and to approve a petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan reviews to authorize a 2,784 square foot addition as presented before the commission and noted in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated June 2, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Daniel Rosenberg. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approve.
Mr. Brophy,
Respectfully deny.
Commissioner Rich,
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and Chairman Drago.
Approved.
And the motion passes 4-1.
thank you
Right.
very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
All right, well, we'll move on then to, I guess it's item B, but it's listed as item A unless I'm missing things. This is, or hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on to
A.
new business. I apologize. Item A, which is 9680 Olive Boulevard, the BP Amico. Carlos?
Okay, Chairman, you've received a request to amend a special permit that was authorized under ordinance 1463. That was back in November 1984. That ordinance authorized the operation of gasoline service station and sale of convenience items, subject to certain conditions. You have a copy of that ordinance within your packet. We also had this item before the commission right before the end of last year. We introduced, we had a discussion with the petitioner regarding the proposed improvements and modifications to the building in there as a discussion item. So there was no action taken or so, but there was an opportunity and there was some comments that were received from the commission. So forwarded to the petitioner. The key issue here is that the proposed changes are ceasing activity of the automotive repair maintenance services that take about a majority of that building, probably over 50%, two mechanic bays that are there, and converting those two bays into a full-scale convenience store in there. We're approximately about a little over 700 square feet in there. So it will be converting the building, changing it primarily from its dual use to solely the operations of the C-store and the business functions, and maintaining, of course, the gas pumps on the site. The issue that we're struggling with in discussions is that the ordinance as it was written, which authorizes, again, the sale of convenience items, references that it was based on an approved site plan that was submitted before the commission, and this goes back to 1984 in there. And that site plan, as illustrated, would have identified the two mechanical bays. Now they're being converted And therefore, it's our opinion from staff that that changes or represents a significant change into this, of the special permit. While it's still an identified use in there, the removal of the bays and the changing of that floor plan change the conditions that require both commission approval and a recommendation to the council for authorization in there.
Is that because of a lot of the increased traffic that would be expected?
Well, that would be one of the concerns in there. The other issue is based back, couldn't identify what the exact wording of the ordinance was back in 1984. Our ordinances have changed and they're more reflective to the city's current comprehensive plan. And gasoline service stations, along with convenience stores, now have a completely different set of requirements as those that would be applicable to this site alone. The site would be deficient in land area. It would require conditions about the setup and operations, and then also criteria for how traffic is managed within that site. If somebody was proposing a service station today or a convenience store today, there are several requirements in the COR district. There's a location requirement, which this general area would be permitted if it had direct access to the signals or signalized intersection, which this does. But it would also require that the site have at least 80,000 square feet. The site a little bit over 12,000 square feet. So it's significantly lower in there, and that compacts and compresses the amount of availability allocated to whether it's circulation or parking. Now, when you do the parking counts, they roughly come out about the same. And it's not a specific issue on how many stalls are allocated into the site, but it's more the design of these stalls and the drive aisles that would not be compliant with the current off-street parking code. But these are pre-existing, and the only change that would occur or being proposed is within the interior of the building. So this is a big investment for them to change or redirect the use as it was initially purchased. Again, it was a mechanics bay prior to the purchase to go to a full C-store. From our end, we're looking at it, well, it's also a non-conforming use that really doesn't further the vision of the city's comprehensive plan. And therefore, if they're going to be proposing the investment that they're doing to the interior, the city would be requesting that they also invest in the exterior and try to get closer to the city's vision and standards and objectives under the comprehensive plan. Therefore, comply with as many code components as possible on that. And in that case, those things are outlined that we would like to see the streetscape improved in the same form or format that is required under Chapter 428. While they're showing some landscape improvements, we saw in the previous petition, this is the city's streetscape standards where we have a transitional area, a dedicated sidewalk, uninterrupted sidewalk, and then the buffer and landscaping in there. Right now, the current proposal would be to landscape the existing grass areas along the right-of-way in there. The other thing, again, the current code would require a convenience store operator or service station operator to conduct a traffic analysis on the site. And this, I think, is vital before any decision could be made regarding that, is how would that circulation work? Another condition in the code would be that only one access point should be authorized or allowed on Olive Boulevard. Now, while that's easy to ask for, again, that traffic analysis will better assess is give us a better assessment of whether does that worsen conditions on the site, and maybe that warrants some relief or does that really improve the access conditions on the site? It would provide more convenience for the pedestrian along Olive without having those interruptions of the extra apron and such. So a lot of the things from the city's perspective are improvements or compliance to some of the site standards that are now required under our comprehensive plan. And while the building owners are looking at it for an improvement to their investment in the structure itself, long run, the city, this is a structure that's probably going to stay, and we want to see that same investment on the exterior. And not saying the building exterior, but the site improvements more compliant with the city's zoning regulations in chapter 428, which are community design standards. So again, the proposal is to amend the existing special permit use. It is a legal non-conforming use, but it's there, and we really can't take it away or so, but they are tweaking it. They are changing it by expanding that floor area or removing the auto maintenance operations. And that gives us an opportunity to further the city's comprehensive plan vision. Collaborative solution would be, again, is to conduct a traffic study, to do the streetscape improvements in accordance to code, to do the intersection improvements here at the corner of Old Bottom and Price. And that's really creating somewhat of a pedestrian plaza, an open space for the public to provide direct pedestrian path to the building itself, and then providing ample sidewalk along the front of the building. I think those would be the minimal improvements that the city would be seeking in there. Again, when I reference this traffic study, you look in the report, it's not just about conducting a traffic study, but looking at some specific criteria in that traffic study. One is closure of one of the aprons along Olive Boulevard, how that impacts the circulation within the site in there, and then how the current circulation within the site operates. And then thirdly is, would this generate more traffic on the site that would warrant some further review or other improvements that we're not thinking of? Or could that minimize it or reflect the condition of closing one of those aprons because we make the internal circulation worse than what it would be? We don't know those, and I think they warrant a review and an analysis in there. So that's where we are. I also note, I mean, these are the same conditions and same things that we talked back in November when we were reviewing the site. There are very narrow components throughout the site. And when you have the two mechanic bays, maybe they do generate some traffic, and you do have a small convenience area in there. But when you have a full convenience store, that is something that would generate more trips per square foot than what the current conditions are. So I think, the utmost issue is conducting that traffic study. That will set, the ability of how much of that streetscape improvement would be done, what can be done with the intersection, and whether these pedestrian requirements, which are required by code, how far can they be met, or if they're going to also need to seek some relief from other boards, such as the Zoning Board of Adjustment or not. You have some views on the site in there. I think everybody's kind of familiar with that corner. We do have representatives from the petitioner that are here, and be glad to answer any specific questions on this.
Does any commission members have questions for Carlos? Carol, go ahead.
Yes, Carlos. The special permit specifically says there shall be no video games or pinball machines allowed at said location. Is that something that the petitioner would like to change in addition?
I don't think that the petitioner would, and that's something they would have to answer. My discussions with them, that's not the core issue. And I'm not sure why that condition was put in place specifically. And they're not looking to add pinball machines or video games to the site.
Okay.
It attracts a negative element, those pinball machine
Well,
players.
I'm asking for a specific reason.
There are some things
Because-
I don't think that we would have included, or at least talking in today's standards, that we would have included in the special permit. Even the request on the prohibition on the liquor license, that is not a commission. It's not an issue that the commission generally addresses. That's more of a policy issue with the council, and the state has a licensing process to go through. Again, I'm not, what I've heard from the petitioner, they can confirm is that, that those would be the least of their worries. They'd like to see them removed. I don't think that they should have been there. in the first place. I'm not sure what the discussion was about in 1984 of why those prohibitions were put in place. Generally, we don't see them, and generally they don't come from the commission. There are regulations that should be controlled on in different aspects of the zoning ordinance. If the city doesn't want pinball machines or video games, you note that in whether it's in public safety or other aspects. And the same with the liquor license. There's a whole different chapter in our municipal code that deals with liquor licenses and whether it should be permitted or not. But
Sounds
again,
like a
I don't.
remnant of the 1980s, you know, that's what it
Well,
sounds
and
like.
this is one of the things, looking not to elongate the discussion, but county indicates that this building was built in 1970, but yet the permit was issued in 1984. And then when you go back to the county aerials, and it's identified that this some form of this structure or in this site was built between 1950 and 1966, and you have the aerials, and I can't find anything prior. Generally, when we amend an ordinance for a special permit, you reference the previous ordinances that were in place. So whether you identify them that they continue or you revoke them and say that they're now void in there so that somebody in my position in the future can follow the trail in there, but there isn't.
Go ahead, Carol.
My recollection. Wait a minute. Is that there's always been a gas station. As long as I've lived in all of that, Missy, you probably remember that too. I think it was remodeled in extensively, particularly the exterior as far as you're concerned. And that's what the documents could decide.
When was the adjacent property built?
The right around about the same time. I think that is roughly a building from 1980s, and bear with me 1 second, I can get that for you.
When the block 66 across the street, one of those gas stations.
Okay, 1972.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
So was this before? No, it wouldn't. The gas station was put in before. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Carlos? Go ahead, Carol.
So, Carlos, are you saying that you're recommending that the petitioner do a traffic study before we approve the?
I think it's required by code. They're going to further expand the convenience store in there. And I think that special permit acknowledged that there would be a sale of convenience items. It would warrant that a traffic study or analysis be conducted. And I noted what those conditions should be, and that is to include traffic generation on the site based on a convenience store, internal circulation impact of the closure of the Western Olive Boulevard apron, and the turning movements on the site from the east and westbound Olive and from Old Bonham Road. It's not the ideal site at the intersection, but it is what it is, and it's not a site that that's going to go away. It just isn't, and the opportunity to have made a significant change at this corner would have happened when that office building was put in place. At this point, that site just has too much value, but it's not, in size perspective, big enough to do.
Didn't you have some other suggestions or requirements too? Didn't, I thought I read.
Correct, and I think when we looked at it, is again, it's trying to improve the city's streetscape to be more consistent with the city's vision.
Mhm.
They did make that attempt in the landscape plan that's provided, but all they did was put landscaping in the areas that should have landscaping already. What we're looking for is to improve that streetscape, lessen the amount of pedestrian conflicts by closing one of these aprons, making a significant improvement to the corner here that's reflected with the criteria under chapter 428. It's an important gateway to the city. While it's not at the western edge of the city, but it represents the entrance into our business district once you pass Stacy Park.
I'd like to add to the traffic study that they pay I guess, particular attention to the turning movements from Old Bonham in and out of the station.
Correct, and that is noted in that.
The, at rush hour in particular, it can be a real mess in there.
If there's no other further questions, we should hear from the petitioner.
Evening. So just to right out the gate, because there's something I'd like to,
I'm gonna pause you real quick, just if you don't mind.
Yeah,
State your
sure,
name
right
and
at the-
address for the record. you know,
yeah,
And if everybody can do that, that'd be fantastic.
yeah. So I'm here as an attorney for the petitioner. My name is Tom Applewhite. I actually live in Acton, 7543 Harlem, 63123. And I actually have a few people here I wanted to, may I approach?
Yeah, yeah.
People present, I think 27 people, other than the 3 live people that can speak. On support of this gas station. Make your references. Stuff back in the 70s, someone said, I'm for 65 years, I support this gas station. It really has been a fixture for the community. And we can hear from the supporters soon, but first of all, this isn't, there was one thing that wasn't mentioned, and first of all, we're not proposing a very novel idea. A gas station plus convenience store is like, peanut butter and jelly, right? So part of this is they're looking to close the existing smaller convenience store that they have there, and then take the mechanical bays and make that a convenience store. That's really the gist of this, ignoring everything else. That's really the big gist of it. And it's only about 2 times the size, maybe a little bit more. We do that. The existing convenience store space become an office. This is something that this gas station, having been around for so long, there is a concern. One thing you hear from the petitioner, this business is failing right now. So he bought this business thinking that he'd be able to have a real convenience store. He is concerned about its failure. He wants to have the success of this location. He actually, part of his plan was to have a sign. We're talking about this being a gateway saying welcome to all of that, right there on the corner. Instead of having this fixture of the community closed. I drive by this when I, in taking care of my children, and I can't see how the traffic closure would really help. I mean, one thing that was brought up is that it might actually worsen conditions to close this apron here.
Which
and
apron are you pointing to?
So
Sorry.
if you could you show them on your map process? It was really helpful when you pointed that out. What it was that you were talking about exactly. So if you see this site, he's talking about closing really the main access point that I literally drive into when I'm trying to pull into this. It's at the corner, the first access point when you're on Olive to get in. I don't see how that helps the traffic in the area. I could understand wanting a traffic study, but I don't understand why it's saying right now, let's also say, let's close the apron. Because it might actually worsen things. And
I don't think I heard that.
it was
point of
in
information.
what I saw for the staff recommendations.
In the staff report, subject to an analysis being conducted on that. I concur in terms of what you're saying. The other
Yeah.
thing is, again, the code would have restricted this site to 1 apron on all.
And it's just, it seemed concerning to us because we aren't sure that this is going to make the traffic situation any better. It might actually take a business that's already struggling and just, put the nail in the coffin for all we know. That's again the access point I come into, how I got to know these kind of people. This is something that adding a lot of extra costs. I understand wanting to meet the city's vision is important, but I am concerned about having some hyper-technical compliance. It doesn't necessarily benefit the community that could have a situation that makes it there's so much expense that they basically can't continue the business. And that's concerning. And I think it would be concerning for the community. You can see from the comments and hear from people who speak, they want this gas station. It's been part of the area. And a lot of people say, I want the convenience store. And then finally, this is just talking about having this gateway item here. Instead of having a welcome to Olivet sign, I am concerned about seeing it fail, me driving by, not seeing a welcome to Olivet in a business that I've actually been visiting myself, and it's just gone. It's failed. And that'd be a very sad thing to see. So that is really why we're trying to say, hey, okay, a traffic study, maybe we understand, we want to be able to have some safety. But tacking on item after item on an already struggling business is just concerning for us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't think that's the intent, is to put anybody out of
Right.
business. Just to clarify that, so. Is there anything else that you would like to?
Very good. Thank you very much, Council, Honorable Council and Community. I just want to add one.
Did you already state your name?
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you.
My name is Kamar Zaman and I'm the co-owner with my brother. So there are two households kind of working together to make living off of it.
Mhm.
It's a small, tiny building, as you can see. The only thing, whatever the attorney has said, I want to add that we have lost, we have given away our tobacco license due to new rules. Because there is a school within the 100 square feet,
Yeah.
and we understand that we are all for the health for the community. So we cannot sell tobacco anymore there, and that since there was a lot of mention about the traffic and all that, and almost half of the traffic is tobacco. People come in to buy tobacco off of the tobacco. Of the gas station. So we are not selling tobacco anymore. So it will definitely decrease the traffic tremendously, significantly.
Right.
The only thing, like Tony already said, we are just relocating the current area because they're very small, very off. The roof is super, everyone has to just, kind of fit into the area. Just relocating that area to the Bay Area, which has a taller ceiling.
Right.
So that have bigger, it's just twice as much convenient, the area to sell the convenient items like, milk and water and stuff. So and plus we are losing and also there will be no more customers for the service station, like the repair area. So, there will be significantly less customer that way. So, even if you give us twice as much area to sell convenient items, it will not increase the traffic level to even the before level, actually. So that's what just 2 or 3 points I wanted to make. And we are not changing any structure whatsoever, no layout changes. All we're trying to make it aesthetically pleasing building. We will paint it and we will put, and I think one slide got missed somehow. We had proposed to put a monumental sign on one corner. Welcome to City of Olivet, beautiful sign on one side. So just give it a little bit pleasing, kind of.
Carlos is going to try to pull that.
There should be one. I'm not seeing that slide somehow. That was given from my landscaping company, and we are ready to pay. Like they have given us the estimate of about like 25,000. Oh, right there.
They have copies of those.
Right there, you can see
You can zoom in, Carlos, maybe down at
the monumental sign. It will give. We do want to work with the city, and we want to make it aesthetically pleasing for our customer and for community. We are trying.
No, we appreciate that.
yeah.
We understand. Is anybody did you want to speak? Sorry.
See. Hi, everybody. My name is Boris Avjan. I live at Apple Tree Condos right next door. I'm running in the upcoming elections for Missouri's House of Representatives to represent our 99th district, which is the entire city of Olivet now, LaDuke and Warson Woods. I do support small and medium-sized businesses, and I think this would be wonderful because, during winter time, we do not have grocery stores around. And we have the mobile on-the-run gas station, and, I live at the condos, and when we're talking about traffic, nobody ever looks to my direction. You know what I mean? Everybody looks on the left side, so I don't think that should be a problem with their gas station that they're turning into a convenience store. But during the winter, we have icy weather, and this would be nice to have a small family-owned business that would also benefit our community. Milk, bread, necessities that people need, to survive. So I do support this initiative, and I welcome the businesses here, small businesses, and I think this would be a welcoming, convenience store to our community. So I would like for you guys to take this into consideration because all of that is a small community, and I want everybody to know that we do support small and medium-sized businesses within our community. And then Stacy Park is next door. People are jogging, and not everybody will use the car to go to the gas station, to get what they want. Their apartment complex is right across the street. So, I mean, they will not sell tobacco or any other products that many people go to, like maybe alcohol, those kinds of things. Are you going to sell alcohol or? So yeah. So mainly, you would go to a convenience store to buy either cigarettes or, alcohol, which they won't have. So I don't see an issue, for them to have this, and it will have a nice facade, and it will be more welcoming of people walking their dogs, kids, family, in the summertime and fall and spring. So I think, if you can take this into consideration and, approve, because it will benefit our community.
Good, thank you, sir. Before, we don't want to get into general public comments at this point in time about this item. We want to keep you guys up here in case we have questions for commission members. Did any of the commission members have any questions for the applicants?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question and a comment, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, let me say, this is a great spot, and I think we're all motivated. I don't mean to speak on behalf of the group, but I think we're all motivated to help find a way to make this happen for you. I hope you understand that because it's kind of the entrance way to Olivet, we like to seize on these opportunities to improve the visual presentation of the commercial buildings that are along that road, particularly here where it's at the corner and where Olivet starts. So that's where my motivation is coming from, to see some beautification of the lot. Not just as far as landscaping, but maybe, rethinking a bit, which is probably what Carlos is going for, rethinking a little bit how we organize this corner. And I share Ms. Wagner's concerns about traffic. I think there's some things that we can do to improve that. So my hope, and I'm getting my question now, my hope is that you as the owners are willing to partner with us in doing a little bit of work yourselves, a traffic study, and maybe listening to some of the input that we have to come meet in the middle. I don't think we're going to place too onerous a requirement on you, but at the same time, we'd like to see a little bit of movement towards the beautification, maybe some logistics analysis and improvement there with traffic and so forth. So that's my question. Is that something that seems reasonable, or is this kind of a take it or leave it proposition?
It's not a take it or leave it proposition. This is something that my clients really do care about this community. That's come across to me. You can see that people in the community know that they're folks that want to help. And actually, I believe one thing Carlos had said to me in our discussions was Nadia, his wife, has been great to work with. So these haven't been combative people.
Right.
I just think it's so important that it's struggling right now, and that it is something to keep in mind whenever you're adding a requirement. There's a dollar sign. So it's just wanting to partner with you, yes, but also have the business stay alive and thrive, which I know you want as well.
Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Kurt.
I have a question, kind of an odd one, I guess. Our president of the United States has said that we need to start weaning ourselves off of gasoline cars. And we should be looking to electric car batteries for us in the future. In other words, we should diminish our need for gasoline. How do you, that's in the fairly near future. And this is a big investment that we're talking about. I'm just curious, are you thinking that you're going to be able to transition when we start using more and more electricity and batteries instead of gasoline? Or how are you tending to come back to us for something else?
Has to be eventually, whenever the need arises, we'll have to evolve. There's no other way. So we already been, kind of thinking about it for the high efficient kind of charging, the DC chargers, and kind of discussing with Evo company. So near future, if the need arises, we have to evolve, this is business at that, I mean, we do want to evolve to stay alive. So yes, it will be, yes, we are kind of thinking, down the line, if it, if the need arises, it will be direct, charging, high efficient charges. units.
What that tells me, what he's saying is these are people who are thinking about the future and staying. So you already heard they're even thinking about that already to have an answer to your question.
That's
So,
good. That's
yeah.
what I wanted to-
Yeah, so I'm encouraged by that and, right now I think your money is larger coming from gas because they don't have the C-store, right there for everyone to see. So, it's trying to make it so the business is something that has another dimension to it.
For now, like, my brother is about, like, about 1,500 out to make sure on the back, say, payments to all. But we get that on. So we kind of that's the, so definitely, like you said, we do.
Are there any drawings that show kind of what the building's gonna look like without the doors?
So we are not actually changing any structural layout, all we do is like, you can submit those pictures as well, actually just painting the, and making it happen. So it's not like changing anything from.
Are you gonna leave the garage doors?
No, they'll make that windows.
There will be a, block, ADA compliant to. It will be by the company. Will be putting, the block and,
Because I think we're gonna need,
Yeah.
for us to, prove anything, we're gonna have to see that. And one other just question I had, and I don't know the answer to this, but does this somehow kick you into requiring to have ADA bathrooms?
It will. And that's something they need to, you'll have to, again, that's more of an architectural part of it. And it will be a change in use. And that's probably gonna come up.
The architectural design was made by civil engineer.
Correct.
So, yeah.
You're thinking about that, good, good. Okay, so I just want to make sure when you said you weren't changing walls, because sometimes that requires.
Understood.
So, okay.
So, but this would be a good investment for our community too. Bring more revenue. People will spend within the city instead of going outside the city, spend on certain things that they want to buy.
Keep in mind too, when you're talking about pedestrians walking, you want to make sure it's safe for them to get to your store, especially with the traffic flow and, that's part of the other traffic flow or patterns, how you're going to get people from sidewalks, crossing areas to the front of your building. So, I think at this point in time, if there's no other questions or comments for the commission, maybe we should open it up. Go ahead, Carol, I'm sorry.
I've got that one other question. Well, Carlos, are you suggesting that we could go ahead and act on a motion to approve without having the traffic study yet?
No, but I can't tell the commission that they wanted to act, that it couldn't, but I think it's important to have that traffic study
Okay.
in place, because it does impact some of the design criteria that's required under the code.
I think
That's what I
so.
was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So I think at this point in time, if we do have members of the audience that would like to come up and speak, we do ask you to keep it to no more than 3 minutes, a piece, because we're respectful for everybody's time and everything. Yeah. So if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak, please come up here to the podium.
Name is Hanifa Moomin. I've been working, first of all, I live at 7717 Delmar, right at the corner of North and South. Okay, and I work at Salvation Army. I've been there for 20 years. Okay, now I'm speaking for senior citizens. Okay, because I'm a real senior citizen. Okay, from me traveling from Warson to North and South, going to Salvation Army in the wintertime, you got to go all the way to Snooks. You go to Ladue or you go to Creve Coeur. Okay, so when you go to Aldi's, sometimes you can get in, sometimes you can't get in. Okay, so I do support.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience would like to speak?
Surya Kushiji. I live on 9 Glen Mary in Olivet. And I support BP Amical Convenience Store because I walk at Stacy Park at 5 o'clock in the morning. And now the park is closed for parking. And we've been parking at the BP station at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock to 6. And
How's the traffic at 5 a.m.?
and the traffic is just fine. And I think the convenience store would be very helpful for the people that walk, and it's I think it'd be a asset to all of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the audience? While you guys are deciding, Carlos?
We
maybe
do have somebody online.
Yeah, let's see if we can bring somebody online too. And if anybody
Mr.
else in the audience would like to speak, just maybe come up to the podium, but just be respectful until we, maybe bring somebody. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Hi, how are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nazia and my address is 9233 Litzinger Road, St. Louis, Missouri 63144. And I am the sister of the petitioner and also the co-owner of the property. So I am here just to request that, just please, we are struggling now for the business. It's just such a small space that even it's hard for me to pay the mortgage. So people come and they ask for me that, do you have milk, you have bread? And then they have kids and, you guys have this, you guys have soap. They ask me the convenience items. So they want a convenience items to be there. So I have a just hope that, okay, I cannot sell tobacco, I cannot sell liquor, but I can sell something that just to help the community and also to help me to survive here, For now, it's really hard to survive that, I'm telling you, because people, they come and sometimes they ask, you have tobacco? And I said, no, I don't have tobacco. And then they put that, okay, I don't want gas, I will go somewhere else. So they don't buy even gas from them because they don't find the tobacco there, but at least families can come, okay, we can go there and we can bring milk for you, bread, and then, oh, okay, get a gas, It's just a commutative, mutual, when the people come, they have some, okay, I will buy this from one spot. They cannot spot, they don't stop at different spots for things, So for now the situation is this. So this convenience item will help us to survive. We will make for now, I'm telling you, we can't do anything. Even we have a plan to put the new dispensers, but I'm telling you, we are now just struggling with that. And so this is just a hope that's helpful for us guys, if you guys will approve us.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
I have Raphael Thomlinson. I'm going to transfer you over to the panelists. If you can turn on your mic and video, and then let the commission know your full name and address.
Hello, my name is Raphael Thomlinson. I apologize. I'm not anywhere where I can really turn on a camera. But let me tell you about myself. I'm from 809 Newcastle Drive, around the corner from this gas station. I'm also a PhD economist and a professor at the business school at Washington University in St. Louis, which is related to my comments, which is it's well known in economics that gas stations cannot survive if they have service stations. That may have been a model that worked once upon a time, but even 20 years ago, economic studies showed that it just was not viable to survive as a gas station unless you had a reasonable convenience store. And when I moved into this area, I was shocked to find that, a gas station that had a service station was still in business, because it just defies all economics. So when they say they're struggling, and every dollar counts and everything that the lawyer said, to me as an economist, it just sounded like the right thing to do. So I just want to say I'm very supportive of the proposal from the BP station, and I hope that the commission reconsiders a little bit the owner's costs that they put in. As an economist, we talk a lot about whether you're being business friendly or not business friendly. It really feels like the restraints put on this business. I understand everyone's saying we're going to try to work together, but I do think Olivet is approaching it a little bit in a business unfriendly way. And I hope that the commission reconsiders and strongly supports this BP and tries to figure out a cost-effective way to make this change happen. Thank you.
Carlos, is there anyone else?
All right, 1 second.
Kate Hellman, I live at 800 North Price. I wasn't planning on speaking on this issue, but I feel moved now that hearing what folks have said. So my kids, when they were younger, went to Old Bonham, and if your kids went to Old Bonham, you know that there is a large population that walks from the school to the apartments across the street. And I think that having a convenience store right there could be a really great thing for kids after school. Maybe get a slushy machine or something like that. I also think, from my kids' perspective, they like to be on their bikes and bike around. And so I think about with this location, there's really an opportunity for a community space that is not car reliant. I've heard kind of a lot of the concerns are around the traffic flow, and I think that's definitely a legitimate concern. And I think also thinking through pedestrian access, bicycle access for kids who might be coming and don't have to then cross Olive if they're on the south side, in the south side of the of Olivet, that there's real potential there. Maybe even pushing those parking spaces back so that there's picnic tables. I don't know, thinking off the top of my head, but just there, I think there's real potential here for community development in this spot. Should a convenience store go in there? Seems like a good idea.
Thanks. Thank you for your comments. Carlos, anyone else?
Okay, if there is anybody else that would like to speak that is online, if you could just show your hand, raise a hand. It's located on the lower portion of the Zoom screen window. And Chairman, I see none.
Okay, good. If there's anyone that pops up, just let us know. Guys, I'm not sure if we're asking for the traffic study, if that's considered, it's gonna be a hardship for you guys. Why don't you come on up?
If you can come to the monitor,
Yeah.
excuse me, to the dais podium.
If someone has a recommendation for a traffic consultant or someone you respect, that was the question I posed to Carlos. We are, to Mr. Brophy's point, we are willing to discuss that, entertain that. That's not something that we're insensitive to. We want this to work for the community. My client is at fear, I can tell right away that this could be something difficult. How long would it take? I think when I was speaking with Carlos, he was like, well, I know of large companies that can do this, but I'm like, okay, well, how much is that large company going to cost and how long is it going to take? I honestly standing here don't know the answer.
Right.
But it does concern me. So if there's a recommendation, someone knows better. They're like, hey, Tom, we think it's this much. You should use these people. We're willing to hear it out.
I don't know of anybody else that off the top of our heads, and
I
I'm
don't-
not
I don't
sure
think
we
we can.
can
Right.
give that. Now, what I would suggest you do is maybe just, do some Google searches and, look and make some phone calls, to different people to try to find out, what their ballpark costs are.
Or you can go through our, sorry to
No, go ahead,
jump on your
Joe.
words, but, or you can look through our previous submissions and find traffic studies that have been
Mhm.
presented in the past effectively.
Yeah, I'll just add that St. Louis doesn't have a lot of traffic consultants. So I don't know that you're gonna have the options, lots of options. But you have to see who responds.
Or the group here.
Yeah,
We're asking for a traffic study, but are we asking for a traffic study assuming everything stays the same in the same configuration, but the convenience store is added and the mechanic shop is removed? Or are we asking for a traffic study that assumes some change in the configuration of the aprons and curbs?
You're asking for a traffic study, assuming that the bays are converted to a C-store.
And nothing else, no other change, no manipulation of the aprons or anything like that?
I
Well,
think we
that's
wanna
what-
review
That's what the study would recommend.
what's the best option,
They
for
would, they would
the
look at that and
you know,
look at the number of cars coming through and look at the
right.
configuration of the apron and how best to handle that and
I see.
parking.
So we're looking for them to review the change and optimize the configuration.
Right, and they would tell us from an engineering perspective,
Do
what,
this.
what the optimal way would be to lay it out and
Is that clear?
cycle the traffic.
Yeah, basically what I'm hearing is how is this expanded convenience store going to impact traffic and should we be doing this apron aspect? That's
And
really
what
what I'm,
configuration of the aprons is most efficient?
right, is
under
it the
those
existing one or a
circumstances?
changed one or? yeah.
Exactly.
Right, and we're just let's have an expert who knows about these things
And
do the design and help us out here.
Yeah,
do you already have a civil, company, civil engineering firm or your architect?
They use Frontenac Engineering, pretty good size firm.
Yeah, so I would speak to them. They're gonna have the best, information, or, probably a person who can either know people or coordinate that and then help you kind of, convey the information that needs to be part of this plan. Does that make sense?
that makes sense. It seems like you want to say something.
I mean, just respect. We are using the customer for the back row and for the repair station. Are asking, I'm just putting it out there, but.
I don't know,
Sure.
but one of the last commentators might know. So if you can find that name of that person, you might want to talk to him. He seemed to be very knowledgeable on these, the subject, and maybe he'd be willing to at least kind of give you some guidance on that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking that was a very, very
Yeah.
Helpful
Right.
person.
Yeah,
Exactly.
your question relates to essentially what a market study would cover. And I don't know that you want to go to the cost of having a whole market study done, but you might. But that's how you find the information.
Maybe we'll see how much your PhD friend is wanting to help. I
Right,
do.
yeah.
And see what
He would know more than us. I would probably say. I think you're right. I think it's gonna be some offset. How significant? I don't know.
If you change into a grocery store, you'll have a lot of fans.
But then how I get gas?
Yeah. All right. Is that helpful? Are you? Okay, good. And maybe you can talk to your friend over here who's might be a representative of the area that's a big proponent of small businesses. Maybe there's something that the small business associations can assist and help, with that as well.
Is to get to know them, they're wonderful people, so.
Yeah.
They're immigrants, so, and I'm proud of immigrants who always come to this country, to our country. To open small businesses and build our communities, make them thrive, so this is very important.
We can tell they're very nice people. So.
Mr. Chairman, I want to remind everybody that people live on the north side of the city as well, while we talk about the south side. So don't forget the fact that people on the north side, I agree, a convenience store for kids. I'm thinking you're going to be the Ben Franklin 5 and 10 that we had when we were kids, and I had to cross the street and I had no way. So, I want to remind you that people live on the north side, and think about that when you're dealing with the traffic study and how you want to make that safe for those kids as well.
To get them across. the street.
Right.
Because like you said, there's people over in the apartment complex that do
Hmm.
walk over. So
penny candy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
thank-
excited for you.
Thank you very much. We look forward to you coming back. All right, bye-bye. Okay. And we'll move on then to item B, which is the text amendment regarding indoor medical marijuana cultivation facilities. Carlos,
1 second, Chairman. I need to just get a couple items here.
jumping ahead on me.
I'm right back in there. I think we're streaming. Okay, Chairman, since you're ready.
All right,
At the last city council meeting, the city council requested that the commission amend the LID light industrial district so as to require an indoor medical marijuana cultivation facility as a special permit use. Right now, the indoor medical marijuana cultivation is not identified within the LID district. It's been my interpretation that is permitted as a manufacturing activity. And it is permitted by right. This amendment would require a special permit for any future use proposal of that. In addition to that, the council requested that staff hire an industrial hygienist to provide guidance in addressing odor issues associated with these type of uses in there. So the council is kind of looking at it in the two-part process. One is for the commission to act quickly to require a special use permit or indoor medical marijuana cultivation facility. That's a directive from the council. The second aspect is that they've asked the staff to hire an industrial hygienist to assist in preparing some standards for review for that. So what we envision is that the council or the commission would take an action to forward a text amendment to the council tonight. And that we would be coming back with some additional recommendations or changes down the road to incorporate conditions as recommended through this industrial hygienist in that process. The reason this is before you is, if you recall, back in April, the commission approved the use of a special permit for New Growth Horizon, which operated a indoor medical marijuana cultivation facility. The purpose of that special permit was not associated with the actual use itself. It was a means in which an odor mitigation plan could have been adopted for their operations. At the council meeting and public hearing, when this was forwarded to the council, there was quite a bit of vocal concern about these type of facilities and the lack of regulations imposed in there. I think the council took that to heart, and they're looking at that in a process. So they're recommending, again, first, require, call it out, and it required as a special permit use. Now, someone might say, well, what's the difference than what was proposed before? Remember, the difference is that they were there for a special permit, so we had a means to adopt an odor mitigation plan. It was not a means of controlling or regulating the actual use itself. The assumption was, or the decision was, that it was a permitted use by right. This would change the whole configuration and require a special permit. Therefore, it would be subject to a different type of review in terms of how that would be evaluated under the process. Again, the original special permit was evaluated under the how that odor mitigation plan was put together. And again, well, in the end of the day, the council did not act on the special permit because it was withdrawn by the petitioner. And this amendment is solely now to call it out and create that process for a special permit review.
this just solidifies.
That
what
is correct.
we- Basically, they were volunteering and us kind of putting together a plan. This is the start of what.
Well, correct. It would no longer be the volunteering or placement of a plan, but also the review process, being that it is called out specifically,
Right.
would be conducted differently than a permitted use by right.
No, I agree,
So-
but that's what I'm saying is they came in to voluntarily try to, proceed with the special permit. This is just solidifying that it has to be a special permit.
Correct,
So it's, not, implemented by right.
correct.
Go ahead, Carol.
I know that there's a lot of emotion attached to this particular use right now, and I certainly understand all that. I'm a little concerned with just calling it this type of use out as opposed to any use within our industrial park wouldn't have the same odor concerns or noise concerns. We shouldn't. Why is it that we're thinking that odors only need to be controlled by this one type of use? Shouldn't odors be controlled by any type of use going within our industrial park?
It's a very valid question, and the simple answer is yes. But the zoning code isn't all comprehensive in any means, and different individuals will provide different opinions based on what's extracted through comprehensive plans and things of that nature in there. While there are other uses that could emit similar odors in there, I think it leads back to the broader question. We haven't amended the LID district in a long time. When I came on, one of the first directives was to reassess our COR districts, and these were, again, byproducts of recommendations from the comprehensive plan, where we adopted the classification codes put together by the Census Bureau. We applied that to all our commercial and office zoning districts, but we didn't apply it to the LID district, where they were utilizing a little bit broader terms, manufacturer, warehousers, where you had more flexibility in terms of a specific type of economic activity or user activity in there. And that's very common with a lot of ordinances. Now, community has a right to call out a specific use. We do that many times in the LID district already. Many warehouses, dog kennels, auto detailing places. There's several very specific type of uses that could fall under the umbrella of a manufacturing or office or a warehouse. But for whatever specific reasons were called out in there. And again, the intent is that the city is not prohibiting them, but recognizes that based on the community input, and again, that's a lot of times through our comprehensive plan, that there should be certain regulations imposed in there to make sure that those are appropriate. Those could be distance requirements, those could be area requirements, those could be other conditions regarding specific operations. Our COR district does that a lot. And we had a good example with the convenience store or a service station. Our code calls out them specifically and expresses concerns about location, lot area, traffic, and even goes down to how the internal components of the layout should operate in advertising in there. So it is common. I think in the long term, I think it would be good for the city to adopt. If odor is a concern, then let's address odor holistically as a whole for all type of uses. I don't think we're there yet, and the directive from the council isn't to do that, at least in this short term.
I'm thinking more about the whole rather than taking a small shotgun, picking each one off as they walk through the door.
Well, and I think also
I-
from the investment community and developer community, I mean, they're investing in our community. If they're going to be property owners, they're just vested as residents as so. But the goal in that is to be upfront in what the expectations and the processes are. And I think one is, again, this amendment kind of does that, at least for these type of uses specifically. But there probably is a need for us to improve our odor standards. So regardless of who comes in, we can tell them up front, if this is a use type that is going to generate odor, please be aware or cognizant of these conditions. That way they can make their necessary decision before they purchase a property or before they start their investment.
is really my concern, what you just said. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be to the city's advantage when we pass the consultant to come in to begin to address the broader issue, which to me is just as salient.
Correct.
And if not,
It probably will lead to those steps, I think.
I
then
think
the
that's
narrow
exactly what we need to
focus.
do, is to be able to bring in the consultant, take their ideas and opinions and, revise the text amendment to specifically address what is going to be required in the special permit. All right. And I think this is just such a new industry, it's not, we've had other types of manufacturing, welding, light manufacturing, kind of painting issues. But this is something that's new, and it's getting there are definitely some odors, that are associated with it. And it's not unique, and I was very happy that when they first came in, the previous person, that they were trying to do a special permit rather than just doing it by right, so I think that was good, but I do agree with the idea of solidifying this as a special permit use, and then getting a consultant in to help kind of nail down how we're gonna, put some teeth into this requirement.
I think a broader approach is really appropriate here, frankly. Because if odor from a particular facility is a problem, well, why not from one that doesn't manufacture something else in the neighboring facility? We would want.
Right
would
now, we
want to
don't
be-
have a
If we're
problem.
gonna protect the neighborhood from odors, we need to figure out how that would look. How would we do it? Not just from one particular thing. but
The only thing I would caution you on is now you're getting very broad, and it's hard to nail down odor thresholds for a huge number of potential chemicals that could be used, or processes that are being done, and we would get lost in trying to come up with things. And there's a lot of there is the Clean Air Act, that addresses a lot of the VOCs, that are generated in manufacturing issues. So there are already some, controls with that. The marijuana manufacturers wouldn't necessarily wouldn't necessarily impact a lot of the items of the Clean Air Act, because of those types of, chemicals that are in there, the terpenes and things, they're going to fall well below, any restrictions that may be out there, and their odor thresholds are so low, in comparison as well. So I think it might be worth looking at later down the road, but I think we need to stay focused.
Can you give us some idea of what a consultant could help us with, particularly with regards to controlling odors from a particular use? I mean, what are we at? What would we be looking at?
I think a review of some of the current standards that other cities have would be appropriate. I think also looking at some type of sampling, methods, that could be incorporated. Some of the items that were proposed may not be, with the previous, may not be truly sufficient. There are some other, devices that are out there that kind of deal with odor as kind of more of a ratio of fresh air compared to the contaminants, but it does provide a measure of it.
So I guess the question that I have in my mind is, how do you establish a level that your community is finding acceptable? That's what I
Oh,
think.
and that's very difficult. And that's the crux of this problem, nationwide, is that you can't measure any of these individual terpenes, because they vary in amounts, and they're also very difficult to measure. and the other devices that you can use, such as a part per billion PID, that's a handheld device, it's going to pick up other VOCs. So you're going to have so many confounding issues. There is one device that I've seen out there. It's called the nasal ranger. And, a lot of industrial hygienists, I am an industrial hygienist, and a lot of industrial hygienists, when we've seen these instruments come out, we kind of, chuckle a little bit at it because it's difficult to use as like an indoor air quality device or things like that. However, it could be something that's useful from trying to establish a tolerable level of an odor. I would have to show you a presentation on exactly how it's done. I mean, I could describe it, but it may not, you may not be able to follow it exactly. And a lot of it is subjective. It's based on, the person that's using it. I'm not, it's this one device that looks like you're Pinocchio. Okay, and you breathe in the air and you have a dial that you can kind of change of how much natural air versus how much air that is drawn in through carbon filters. You can change the ratio of them. And what the idea is at what ratio can you detect it? Because odors is very tricky, it's and it's very subjective, but this is one way to kind of gauge that that ratio. So, you might be able to detect it standing out, just, by breathing it. And then you would use that nasal detector to try to kind of dial in to kind of see with the ratio of clean air added to it, at what level do you not smell it?
So our consultant, if we would go forward with that, will be able to give us some parameters that we could begin to work with. Is that?
It's possible, but
There's
there's
different
nobody in town that
ways.
has a nasal ranger. Okay, I'll just tell you that. I've seen some communities that have bought one of these, devices out in Colorado. I know they were using it out there to try to gauge it, so it would be something that, the community would have to invest in. And it may be something that maybe St. Louis County Air Pollution Control would want to take that role on. So that way they could, address this, not just by a city basis, but be able to address it with the St. Louis County Air Pollution Control. Something new. Okay, I mean, this is new, there's not a lot of, industrial hygienists in our area that have any direct experience with this. We've all just been reading studies. We've all been reading articles about, how this is done in other communities, and when a lot of times if you start Googling it, you'll see the historic stuff when they were first, implementing these things without control. It's come around a lot. Could there be improvements? I think with any industry, there could be improvements. There is a challenge, with indoor growers that want to kind of control the odors in the space with negative pressure. That takes a lot of mechanical, equipment, and the more air that you draw in and tighten it up, and you have to then deal with the makeup air. Well, that makeup air is coming from the outside. So, like St. Louis, we have temperatures that are very cold in the winter. And we also have, high humidity and hot temperatures in the summers. So when you start drawing in that outside air, it takes money to control them. And that's difficult. And with cultivators, they want it to be in a set temperature and relative humidity zone. And so keeping that tight control is difficult, which is why sometimes I think you don't have as tight of controls because they're not putting it as under so much negative pressure to control the odors because they're trying to maintain the temperature and relative humidity in the space. It's a real challenge, for them. But like I
Thank you
said,
for that.
yeah, no, It's tricky. So I see Barb on. Did she want to?
Ms. Sondag?
Thank you. Thanks for being here as well, always. I think one of the reasons that the motions by the council were pretty broad. I mean, and they were very specific for the planning commission. Do a special use permit so that we could get something in place, right? But then it was hire the industrial hygienist. And Carol, I think you bring up a good point with regard to the variety of things that could come up, et cetera, and we're aware of those. And so in some ways, the hygienist, we don't know yet, right? But maybe we hire someone who says, in your special use permit, you should ask, this would be a form for odor kind of thing, and maybe we keep them on retainer. The same way we do with our stormwater, the same way we do with these other kind of specialty things that need to be reviewed really on a case-by-case basis. And I'm not saying that's what we will do, but I'm saying that that's quite well a possibility that we may end up there because we don't want to, the commission could spend a lot of time and staff could spend a lot of time on, on kind of playing whack-a-mole and trying to get the next odor item. And so what we really want is we want a mechanism that and a process within especially, that will help us, identify maybe an issue and then, so give us a plan and we can send it to this other professional. And so we could get really specific, we could get general, and I think we'll probably fall somewhere in the middle.
I think we just need to be cautious to allow for future improvements.
And that's the other thing, Chairperson, is that, that's the other thing that we're concerned about with regard to putting in static requirements within our ordinances and our special use permit, because I'm going to guess, that, as you said, new industry, things are changing pretty rapidly. And we don't want, all of a sudden in 2 years, we're asking for something that is outmoded, right? And so that again is why we're thinking maybe this isn't, a one and done with the industrial hygienist. Maybe this is an ongoing relationship.
Thanks, Barb. I appreciate it. Carol?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Carlos, I guess I'm so confused about the what we're talking about. And that it just seems to me so we don't end up playing, as Barb said, whack-a-mole. Maybe it would be more efficient really for the city to think about overlaying throughout all the business districts, special permit process. They make them all of PUD type. It universally apply these standards rather than have standards for this use and something else for the next thing that come along.
Right, and I don't think.
If I might, Carol, I appreciate that. Part of the issue, though, is that this is front and center right now, and it's kind of like we've identified a hole, right? And somebody called up and they said there's a crack in the sidewalk. We need to, we need to go, and maybe we're not going to fix that sidewalk because maybe there are bigger issues behind it, but we need to go put a cone out. So that we have a little stopgap right now. And so we know that at this point in time, there is an industry that creates an odor that the residents do not want. And so, yes, the council, I believe, is being very specific to the planning commission and saying, deal with this now because we know it needs to be fixed. And then get the experts on board and let's look at the bigger picture. We're not at all saying we don't need to do a bigger review and that type of thing. But I do think that you know, we have been alerted to an issue in our infrastructure, and we need to respond to it specifically, and then we take a step back and we look at the whole sidewalk.
I share Ms. Wagner's concern in that, let's say tomorrow there's a petition for someone to put a tire burning facility in our light industrial district. Different smell, maybe their process is compliant with all laws regarding the, you know, the emission of those odors, but they want to put a tire burning facility in all of that. That presents an identical problem to this one, perhaps not with some of the social and political issues that surround medical marijuana at the moment, but from an ordinance perspective, it's identical. And it seems like I was sitting here reading through our light industrial district sections of our code, and it seems like the real hole here, and I agree there is a hole, is that the ordinances say that you're allowed to bring in manufacturing so long as it complies with all laws and ordinance regarding noise and odor and, you know, emissions. That seems to really be the problem, is that our community is not willing to allow into the light industrial district manufacturing that may comply with all of the laws, but still creates a nuisance. And so maybe what we need to be doing is looking at amending the LID code to create a special permit use for any manufacturing facility that creates and produces any odor.
Well,
I realize, but
You're taking on too much. And just to, you know, you're going well to the far end of the spectrum with a tire burning.
sure, I understand.
facility. There'll be other reasons
But-
why they couldn't do that.
I understand, but I'm saying we
You
could,
know.
we could come up with 10 different examples of companies that would want to come in
I
and do something
totally agree.
concerning.
I totally agree. But right now, we know we got a problem with a hole in this particular sidewalk. We don't know, you know, just use that analogy that Barb was talking about. You're right, we do. We have other areas that could become hole, but we know we got one here. Okay, so we
I
need,
guess-
we need to put what she's saying is, and what the council is
Plug this hole.
plug this hole.
Yeah.
So we got a gap, and then let's stand back and let's take a look at it.
And I don't disagree with that. I guess what I'm positing, and maybe this is not, maybe it is too big of an issue for us to tackle right now. But what I'm positing is that the whole, if we were to define the whole, it's not marijuana manufacturing, it's stinky businesses coming into our LID district.
Yeah.
And that's, the whole is bigger than this one example.
And that's really, Richard's articulated my thoughts in the same, slightly different way. And I think I don't have a real problem with the text amendment that's in front of us. I guess my concern is if we're concerned about odors, which it sounds like we need to be, that it really pertains to a much larger thing than just this one use. And I don't want to see us not address the bigger problem just because just because we plug a hole.
I know, but I think we need to plug the hole.
Well, I'm
And
not
then
saying we
step
don't.
back. I
I'm
know.
not saying we
Well,
don't.
that's kind of
but-
what you guys are saying.
No.
No, I
no,
disagree.
not
I
at all.
disagree
No, no.
entirely. I'm not advocating for not plugging the hole. I think the hole needs to be plugged. My point is the true whack-a-mole issue here is next week, we could have an application in front of us for an entirely different stinky problem in the LID district. And we will have added medical marijuana cultivation facilities to our list of special permit uses, but not that one.
Well, we
And
can
then-
review that. We
But-
can, when we go through, we can review that. Now, I will say,
But we won't
We
review
have-
it. We won't have the ability to because it'll be a permitted use.
what will be permitted?
The next smelly manufacturing facility that comes in.
Right, but right now, we have, I mean, this is a brand new industry that is creating a smell that is not regulated. There's no other means to regulate that, okay? Other firms, tire burning, would be regulated by the EPA.
And that's
You
an
know,
extreme
there'd be
example, but-
Other firms,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, that would be out there. So this is a very new industry. And, you know, if you look at other industries that are out there, we have years of history that we don't necessarily have issues. Now, there's other issues that might be like pig farms and, you know, stuff like that, but I don't believe those are allowed here and all of that. You know, to
I
be-
wouldn't be so sure about that. I
Well,
mean,
then
my
that-
reading of the light industrial district is that if you're manufacturing something, come on in and do it.
Oh, it's stuck here. I mean, I
I
guess,
do, then we can take a look at that.
which is pretty much my point. And I suspect that Richard would agree in that I'm not disagreeing with this very specific text amendment in front of us. But I am cautioning that if we're gonna hire expert advice, that we need to think about very seriously addressing the concern, the broader concerns, which I think is just as important an issue to all of us, not just this one specific. And I don't want to see us ignore the broader issue just because we have we want to pour some quick cement in a hole.
No, but
To use Barb's
I'm
analogy.
going to just, maybe I'm repeating myself, and I apologize if I did. But I feel like this is different. There could be other businesses or industries that are out there that have odors that are a known issue. Okay, that we might have mentioned. But there's also other cities that have addressed this in other ways. So we maybe don't have to hire a special consultant to evaluate those that have historical reviews already in place and may already have defined guidance. I think why we want this consultant is because this is a very new type of issue that's changing quite a bit. So there's not a historic, you know, mechanism to kind of look to see how other, you know, groups or cities address these things. I think it's worthwhile taking a look at that, but I think, you know, let's get the stopgap. Let's hire the consultant to address this specific issue. Because if you start making it broad, you're gonna start spending a lot of dollars. And I believe that would be really outside the scope of really what I think all of that really needs to be focused in on at this point in time. And maybe one good way to address this is to speak with St. Louis County Air Pollution Control Department that has already regulators in place that might be helpful in that regard, to provide some guidance, to see what's already out there. So that's my thought. I think let's, in the sake of time that we have here, let's stay focused on what's in front of us right now. And I do believe that we have public comments that want to, you know, have some presentations. I think your points are well valid, but I also think that there might be some other ways to go about it rather than having the same consultant address those issues as well. Anybody opposed to, anybody else have any specific questions that we want to address? Otherwise, I think, Carlos, we want, there's going to be a presentation.
Correct. Ms. Helen, are you set? Bear with me 1 second, Chairman, as I get the information up front.
I'll go ahead and introduce myself while the orientation of the presentation is being worked on.
Sorry about that.
I'm Kate Hellman. I live at 800 North Price. and I'm here as a representative of Clean Air Olivet. So you may have heard, hopefully you've heard of our small group, small but growing group. We started working together as just a grassroots citizen group at the beginning of May, when the larger population in Olivet first heard about this proposed facility. I am one of the members of the leadership team, and I'm also representing a separate subcommittee of our group that focuses on city government. So we do have 6 separate subcommittees, and our subcommittees have been working at what feels like a very ferocious pace to try and get as much information as we can, to learn as much as we can, to understand where the community is coming from, and to present information to the council and to the PCDC. So while we did form specifically in response to the New Growth Horizon proposition, we know that our work continues because of the holes that have been discussed in the zoning codes that we hope that the PCDC will address. So Carlos, if you could go to the why we are here slide.
Bear with me 1 second here. Let me look that. Okay,
Awesome, thank you.
sorry about that.
Nope, that's all right. Thank you. So yes, we are here because of the public outcry and concern over the establishment of any marijuana growth and production facility in Olivet. While I've heard a lot of talk about concern about odor, and that is definitely one of our concerns, if you listen to the public comment from both of the city council meetings, there are also just lots of concerns that go beyond odor, that concern public health, public safety, property values, and just general neighborhood impact and community well-being. So we want to present just some of the science and research we've done, as well as the legal precedents that we have gathered from other neighboring municipalities. Hopefully you have all of that information. It was a lengthy packet that was provided today of lots of information. And
Carlos?
presenting.
Sorry.
Yep.
Was that handed, sent out to everybody?
Yes, you have a copy in your diet.
Okay, good.
So that information helps to set the stage for why we think additional zoning requirements are so important, and also what we as a group would like to present as a proposal to the PCDC. So, excellent, you're following right along, Carlos. Okay, so we do support very much the proposed amendment to the ordinance language that reclassifies, or not reclassifies, but specifically classifies medical marijuana. We would actually like to see the word related uses instead of just specifically focusing on cultivation facilities. That medical marijuana related uses be considered under the special permit section of the light industrial district. So we do support that. And we think that more is needed. So we would like to see additional time, place, and manner restrictions put into place to protect nearby residents and businesses. And the amendments that are hopefully going to be begun tonight would allow that under the Missouri Constitution, which you have here in front of you, that specifically state that local governments may enact ordinances or regulations that govern the time, place, and manner of operations of such facilities in the locality. And I have presented to you a legal perspective from a local lawyer here in Olivet. And then also examples from University City, Creve Coeur, and Town and Country, who have already enacted and have on their books ordinances of various details and various lengths that help to just provide a legal precedent and what's going on in nearby municipalities. From our perspective as Clean Air Olivet, we think that the ordinances provided by University City and the ordinances provided by Town and Country are much more comprehensive, but there are certain things across all three that are similar. So to set the stage for why these regulations are needed, I just will go over briefly some of the scientific research on the matter. And we do have some of the folks with us who have provided the science and who are representatives of our science committee. So the first thing there is the biogenic VOCs that are released in the cultivation. This is what's mostly responsible for the odor, and they are known to be irritants to both skin and respiratory systems. And then as well, different toxic chemicals such as the disulfides that are present in the cannabis plant itself. So that part there, if you see in parentheses, that odor and airborne emissions piece on this specific slide relates back to the proposed text amendment that our group is presenting that has specific pieces in it that relate to odor and airborne emissions. The second is the pesticides and fertilizers that are used in the cultivation process that pose significant risks, both in terms of just waterborne emissions and their impact on aquatic life. Then the hazardous and flammable solvents used in the extraction and processing process. Again, these come back to concerns about airborne emissions, as well as waste, how waste is dealt with, and fire safety concerns. Additionally, cannabis plants absorb and store heavy metals, which get to concerns for how the waste is taken care of, how it is disposed of when that plant material is no longer growing, no longer in use. So additional community concerns that go really beyond the airborne emissions, the waterborne emissions, and the waste concerns are the psychological and addiction risks that are associated with close proximity to both dispensaries as well as production facilities. And you have an article that was presented and provided to our group from a local psychiatrist. And then as well, evidence suggesting a decrease in property values for locations near such factories. We're providing all of this evidence because in the course of listening to some of the previous PCDC meetings and some of the city council meetings, there were questions of like, well, how do we know that it does this? Is there evidence that it does this? And this is why we're presenting this evidence to you, to say it's not just anecdotal. Here's some actual studies that connect things to property values, addiction concerns, public health concerns, and environmental concerns.
You mind if I interrupt you with a question?
Sure.
The psychological and addiction risks that you've identified, you say associated with close proximity. How close are we talking?
So that I don't know the exact, because I cannot say that I read every single word and remember every single word.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot like
It's
that.
more about access. So the ease of access. If teens and adolescents, in that article that I sent you is specifically looking at younger age groups,
We're
so
talking about
adolescents
kids
and young adults.
using the drugs rather than people living near the processing facility. Just to be clear about that.
Yes, so it's the impact that the article basically in a summary shows that addiction rates are higher for individuals who live in close proximity. So that there is a link that is believed to exist between ease of access and addiction rates.
Ease of access, meaning like they're breaking into the warehouse or there's somewhere nearby that's selling it.
Yeah, it's that specific one was talking about dispensaries, but I imagine, again, I haven't read detail by detail.
I just want to make sure that we're really careful that
Mhm.
we're not just introducing evidence, but not having it be applicable to the situation at hand and understood in context. So I just caution you to be careful about that because I am going to take a look at this stuff and. hope
And
it
I
lines
encourage
up
you to
with
do so. And I'm
what you're
happy
saying.
to direct you to Dr. Reka Ramanuja, who could give you much more information than I can because she is the psychiatrist in the field. So I am the overview spokesperson, so I am not a scientist. We do have scientists that presented the information with us here. Some might be on Zoom. So a lot of the super duper detail stuff, I'll do my best, but I'm the overview person.
We're not here to debate this. We're here to listen to this, but then we're also going to be hiring an expert to kind of go through, their own review of this too, but we appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. And the idea too is as a spokesperson for the community, there's a huge community response and we have nearly 100 members on our email list. Most of the people who showed up at those community meetings showed up because of some of the work that we did distributing flyers, like literally hitting the pavement, talking to people. So that there's a big community response that I think everybody's pretty aware of and willing to respond to. All right, so our proposal for this specific text amendment, which was the third attachment. I don't know if they're still in order in your packet, but the third attachment to the email that was sent to Carlos goes through our proposal for a text amendment. So we would like to see at least 1,000 feet residential buffer in addition to the location buffer that's already provided by the state guidelines that requires 1,000 feet from primary, secondary schools, daycare centers, and churches. The second is no detectable odor. You will see that phrase or a variant of that phrase exists in the U City Code, exists in the Town and Country Code, and exists in the Creve Coeur Code. We recognize that achieving no detectable odor is a difficult and expensive process. We also recognize this is a very lucrative business, and to protect our community, and especially the neighbors who surround the light industrial district, we think that the standard of no detectable odor is an important one. Emissions and waste management plan. So the airborne emissions goes beyond just those emissions that produce an odor, recognizing that there are lots of chemicals involved and lots of processes involved in marijuana cultivation and marijuana infused products manufacturing. And so we want to have controls in place for the odor as well as for other potentially harmful airborne emissions. The same is true for waterborne emissions, specifically because of environmental concerns over pesticides and fertilizers possibly entering our waterways or just being sent down the drain. Additionally, we'd like considerations for waste disposal and storage, given that the cannabis plants can contain heavy metals and give off smell and can be a potential public safety hazard should you have plant material that's out that could potentially be stolen or used in any other way. Additionally, expanded public notice. This comes straight out of comments and concerns offered by the public for the residents of the Arrowhead Park who felt like they were not sufficiently notified. And I understand that the typical zone is 100 feet or 150 feet for notification, and that was expanded to 300 feet. In listening to the PCDC recordings from previous, there was back and forth about whether postcards were received, whether mailings were received. So because of the great public concern over this specific topic, we would like to see expanded public notice so that notice would be given to residents in a broader swath of the community. One recommendation is within 1,000 feet of the proposed location. Some members of our group would like to see that to all residents of Olivet. So that's another thing to consider. And then any of the special permit provisions need to ensure compliance with all of the applicable ordinances, regulations, and laws. And that includes those from the Department of Health and Senior Services, as well as the EPA, the Department of Natural Resources, and Metropolitan Sewer District. And then finally, just additional considerations that are not necessarily spelled out as clearly in our proposal. Is a safety and security plan for the concerns about public safety as well as fire hazards with the solvents that are used in the processing. and a process for clearly handling citizen complaints by the city and not by the business, with a clear timeline for resolution. And then finally, clear terms in any special permit for how and why that special permit could be revoked. So we thank you for taking the time to read through all of this information. We really hope to be a partner with you in the development of any potential zoning regulations and text amendments to the light industrial district. And yeah, look forward to working with you to come up with a solution that fixes the hole and fixes a wider portion of the sidewalk too.
Thank you. So, Post, do we have any other public comments on this?
Do you want to, for those that would like to speak that are online, if you can show a show of hands, you want to do the online or in person first?
Let's do the in-person first. But you know, if people online, make sure they're notified so they can start raising their hand. That would be
And
great.
it's been noted, and then I do have one person so far, Ms. Hanson. In there.
And we will limit
you.
this to 3 minutes. We gave, because we had a presentation that was, you know, brought before us. We gave extra time, you know, for that to make sure she was able to put all of her information. So we do ask you, you know, be mindful of the time. It's already 9:20. If there's anything that's a duplication, just try to keep it short and brief. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jeff Conway. I live at 6 Lynn Court. One of the considerations are just sharing, it's a new industry. As Kate said, it's a very profitable industry. Just doing a quick forensic analysis of the business, 30,000 square foot facility. From what I've seen, one plant every 1.4 square feet. That's 20,000 plants, 4 harvests per year in an internal facility, yielding 1.2 ounces per plant, about 4.85 ounces per plant. If they sell at about $300 per ounce, that means that the revenue generated from a facility like this would be about $30 million per year. It's a high margin business. Once you've paid for your facility, security, people to grow and monitor the plants. And the reason I'm bringing some of these things up is, gosh, is it too burdensome to do something where you would have a investments in the building to seal the building, to create a negative pressure system, to precondition the air into the greenhouse? Revenue is going to be ballpark 30 million a year. Expenses and the profit margin, roughly 50% from some of the things that I've seen. An investment of $5 million that could be amortized between building and facility and function and upkeep could be, let's say, just ballpark a number, $5 million. The expense on that would be $500,000. That would be 3% on the, or less than 3% on the overall business margins. So in terms of reflexively saying, oh, this is going to be too expensive, I think the right way to approach this from a business friendly, but also community friendly perspective is to say, in a high revenue, high profit margin, if somebody's going to come to our community to do this, I think we all want to have somebody who wants to do it right and make the right investments. And a very brief analysis says there's a lot of headroom to encourage a processor and grower to come in and invest in to do it right. So I just wanted to share that as some facts just for level setting of what we're talking about the industry. It's not a mom and pop thing. There's a lot of money to be made. And I think that there's plenty of money to be able to invest in it, to do it right. So if we go forward with it, we're doing it right for the long run. Thanks.
Any other members of the audience who'd like to speak? Go ahead. No worries.
Hello, my name is Bill Hanson. I live at 817 North Price Road. First, I'd just like to say thank you for your questions. I just want to make sure that we're not missing the forest through the trees. You're absolutely right. You know, we need to think about, we don't want to make something too specific. And then my concern is that we don't do anything. There definitely is the hole in the sidewalk people are concerned about. We've got some proposals, for things to work on that. But just like, I wasn't around when we first made the cigarette laws, but I'm sure that they've adjusted over the years. We need to have that same mentality. We need to make our best effort start, then adjust as more information and knowledge comes along, and it should and will change. But we need to get that first line in the sand and work from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other members of the audience? Feel free to come up. Yeah.
Thank you for patience. Now it's very late. Forgive me, use my poor English to suffer you. I'm
Name and address.
I'm Senjun Liu in the end of Iroquois.
Yes.
Yes, in the end that's
Very good.
8933. Yes. Even though my language is not so clear, but I'm a PhD.
Doing just fine.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm got a PhD at the University of Missouri for the plant science, focus on the natural product from, such as the corn root, the cotton, whatever that for chemistry, I take 5 different high level of the chemistry class in chemistry department. So all the natural product, to be honest, before we have this facility here, I never focus on marijuana, that leaf emission, that toxin. I just notice THC, CBD, that medicine drug. How does that work? I know that very well. As a kind of neurotransmitter, binding receptor, I know that. But later, I read many papers, and then I realized smell, the odor smell. Before that, the science not too much of research that. Later, they realized that's a kind of thal. That's similar like skunk, a skunk fart. That because for marijuana thal, because there's a new industry, not too much of research on that. But for the skunk, that the spray, that's toxic. That's CDC, we can find the published paper for that one. Another thing is for the terpenoid, the scientists discovered it for many years already. But for terpenoid, it's not so specific toxic, especially for low concentration. But last year, the scientists discovered terpene with little of the ozone, O3, and then these took together make a terpene to form a dimer. That's just like a PM 2.5. That's very toxic, can induce of the lung cancer. That's out of the magic product from last weekend. And then, actually, I want to share with you. 50 years ago, nobody realized second-hand smoke is toxic. Now everyone, yes, realize that. Yes. Now I want to ask you to protect our community through your power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I will give this to you. Respect as a foundation for our decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. Carlos, is there anybody else?
All right, I do have a couple of people online if we're set.
Yeah. Good.
Ms. Hanson, I'm going to transfer you over to the panelists. If you could state your name and address, and then also to make sure your video and audio are set on.
I am Christina Hanson, 817 North Price Road. Because this is a fairly new industry, sorry, I didn't turn my video on, just a second. There we go. I do request that we not limit any requirements, ordinances, permits to only medical marijuana. While currently recreational marijuana is not legal in Missouri, when the Olivet Comprehensive Plan was made in 2006, we had no idea that medical marijuana would be legal here in 2022. So I would just like to request that we keep this open to any type of marijuana facility, not just medical. I don't think we should limit ourselves to shoot ourselves in the foot if Missouri ever does legalize recreational marijuana. And thank you for listening to Kate's presentation and everything tonight. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.
If there's anybody else online that would like to speak, if you can show your hand, it's located on the lower part of the window screen for the Zoom. There are none.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it, and we'll all get a chance to review it. And so thank you for your time and efforts to put that together. So that being said, do we want to have any further discussion on the motion that we want to address tonight? Being none, do I hear a motion?
Bear with me and I'll get that on.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval and forward to the city council an ordinance to amend Article 9 LID Light Industrial District of Chapter 400 zoning regulations, Title 4 land use of the Olivet Municipal Code, specifically Section 400.840 special permit use to include indoor medical marijuana cultivation facilities.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's been made and seconded. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Rosenberg. Approved. Commissioner Brophy.
Approved.
Commissioner Rich.
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner.
Approved.
Commissioner Dugal.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, good.
And just the tentative schedule for this would be to forward this to the city council on their meeting on June 14th and coordinate for a public hearing on June 28th.
Let's move on then to other business and meeting minutes. And it looks like we have the meeting minutes for May 5th, 2022 in front of us. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there any other ones?
No, just that one.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Kurt.
I'd like to acknowledge receipt of the meeting minutes for May 5th, 2022.
Acknowledge. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Carlos.
Couple of items, in terms of city news and events, tomorrow is gun violence. Well, I guess it is currently Gun Violence Awareness Week. The city will be recognizing Gun Violence Awareness Week tomorrow. And one way to do so is to wear orange. And I believe all staff members will be wearing either a ribbon or some orange as part of that awareness week. We do have the Juneteenth observation coming up on Monday. City offices will be closed on June 20th in observation. Of course, the Juneteenth is on June 19th. Mayors for Meals will begin on the week of June 20th through the 24th. Additional information can be accessed off the city's website on locations and such. The City of Olivet will be participating. We do have a citywide yard sale scheduled for June 25th through the 26th, that's Saturday and Sunday. I'd like to congratulate our new police chief, Chief Andreski, for the position that she was promoted as chief of police at the last council meeting. And we did issue a request for qualifications for the comprehensive plan. We did follow the recommendation of the commission and provided for 30 days. Tomorrow is we're midway. RFQs are scheduled closing on June 15th. For development updates on some park matters, work continues on the community center off of Warson Park, along with the GRG trail. And that segment of the trailway that would start from Warson, head through the Warson Park area and then up to the far western end of Indian Meadows, where the next phase of the trail extension will take place. Work continues at Pavilions at Villa and Stacy. They are unavailable due to that construction right now. And Herb's side, I believe, is available until July 1st for use. And of course, Stacy Park parking lot is closed and set to reopen sometime in August. On development items, Old Bonham Elementary construction continues on. The majority of the shell is fully in place, so they're working in the interior. Work is moving fast. The Oliver scheduled opening is for July 1. This one's been moved from March 1st into April to a realization that would happen in July. And one of the things, and we're seeing that impact, and it's not with all similar developments. One of the major issues of the delay was regarding electrical components for meters and things like that being backlogged. And they did a really good job before the pandemic of storing products and having things ready and set to go. And it was interesting. I think they've overcome that issue, but now they are facing the second issue is not enough refrigerators in there. On a positive note, they have over 73 units already pre-leased and scheduled for use by July 1st. Plant Haven Commercial Center across the street is looking very impressive. The improvement plans have been issued for the Plant Haven component on the far eastern end, which will be a full-time gardening center and gift shop that will operate out of that. Outside of that, there'll be 4 additional tenants, and those have not yet been identified. Firestone has received preliminary occupancy, and work still continues on the on landscaping and on the Veterans Fountain improvements at Olive and Dealman. Olive Crossing work continues to progress. A lot of utility work is still going on. The full electrical lines on Olive have not been relocated yet, as I think the last one is Charter that's working there. They're still doing some underground work regarding water and sanitary as they do the improvements to the basin near the ramp. And then the apartment building, pretty much the full foundation is in place. We anticipate by mid-June, you'll start seeing the third dimension as walls start going up for the parking garage first, and then followed by the wood construction for the apartment structures in there. So that'll be exciting once we start seeing that kind of rise from the ground in there. Being that we're talking about that, just a note across the interstate on the other side, work continues in the U City side as they're doing their Olive Road improvements in their site in. I think they're looking at the Costco trying to get set up by November, up and running. It's also important to note, we know that these developments create traffic issues in there, and we're cognizant of that, and therefore that's why the city put together its traffic management plan, also a specific plan for that interchange area to look at current developments, the impact in 5 years, 10 years, and then 20 years out, and what that has. Because regardless of what all of that does, our neighbors are also going to be making improvements, and that is going to impact traffic. And while you can never rely that traffic volumes are going to fall, you can do, and you can be proactive in trying to better manage traffic. And that's been one of our goals when our comprehensive plan and all our subsequent plans put together. And again, that's why we will work to try to close these aprons to minimize the amount of conflict points along the corridor, have land use policies to have certain uses to be immediately accessible or adjacent to signalized intersections. And that was one of the things we were talking about today. Irvington Rhyme and that Opus development, the demolition and restoration are complete. We don't anticipate any additional construction activity probably till about August. In the easy storage, we've been in discussions with our architectural staff. We anticipate that the building plans will be submitted for review in July with the goal of construction of the building itself now, starting in August. So that's something we're excited to see come in the pipe. Be glad to answer any other specific questions. Again, going back to the electrical thing, our neighbors on the other side of Creek Court, the reason that Lindbergh Olive intersection is not complete yet, it's regarding electrical components with the signal nets.
Wow. Appreciate the update. That was great. Sure. Carol?
Yes, Carlos, is the easy storage approvals from PCDC, are those still valid?
Yes.
It's been quite a while.
Correct. They were authorized through that special permit.
Mhm.
So that special permit is an active and in place.
Okay,
So, yes.
just checking.
Bessie?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Carlos always does a very wonderful job. There's not much more that I need to add to what information you were just shared with. You know, I've said this 3 times now. There's people in this audience that have heard this a 4th time now, that we have a comprehensive plan. And I certainly hope that the hundreds of people that showed up either by Zoom or here at various times for expressing themselves will be involved with our comprehensive plan and looking at what the city wants to do for the next 20 years, because we've done a good job with the land plan that you all adopted back in 2006. And yes, there's things that are allowed now that were not allowed then. And, you know, what you look at it as an industry of yesterday is a different industry of today. So a lot of things and very little at the same time. So look forward to that aspect with you guys. And thank you very much for doing your job tonight to bring that particular document back to the city council. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions, comments from commission members? Otherwise, we'll adjourn at 9:42. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.